I'm Echo. I'm a senior student at the Village Zendo, and thanks for joining us on a Tuesday night or for streaming at a different time. You know, the only problem with talking after an hour of zazen is talking after an hour of zazen. But just now, the days are getting longer, and many of our Sangha have been waxing poetically about the beautiful spring, or as my wise southern mother, who spent 5 years in the frozen north of Wyoming, told me when I first moved north. She said, my first winter, I called and I really exclaimed to her. I said, this was the best spring ever. It was so beautiful. I was in Vermont and there had been like, I don't know, 6 feet of snow, and I thought it's never going to be green and spring again. And she said, my dear, every spring in the north is the most beautiful ever. And she was wise and she was right. And it was a true Zen master statement, because every spring just now is the most beautiful ever. And meanwhile, here in South Florida, where I am now, we're in early summer. It is hot and humid and completely unrelenting and inescapable except in the air conditioning. But of course, if I pay attention, it changes, right? Hour by hour, moment by moment, there's a breeze, a gale, a gentle rain, a thunderstorm, more humidity, less humidity, sunshine, clouds, trees blooming, leaves falling, grass greening and grass turning brown. That last one is also known as sprinklers working and sprinklers not working. And last week, I noticed the palm tree outside our kitchen window, and I realized, quite surprised, that the palm tree outside the window had grown. The palm fronds are no longer blocking my view. Over the last 10 years, that tree has grown, and I've never seen it grow, but it has grown constantly and undoubtedly over that time, but certainly not 3 feet since I last noticed. But now I have a splendid view of the smooth part of the trunk, a little brown around the edges and the bottom fronds, almost constantly moving in the breeze. A view different than I had before, which of course was and is true every time I look out that window. I just don't often notice. And isn't that always true? Sometimes I remember to notice. I know that everything changes from moment to moment. It comes and goes, arises and falls away. But it's hard to remember to acknowledge the miracle of each moment. Earlier this month, I took my very first plane trip in 14 months. In March of 2020, I was literally grounded after an adult life of traveling every month, almost always multiple times every month, for my adult life. By May of 2020, it was the longest period of my adult life without being on a plane. I'm a really good traveler. I have lots of habits and patterns built around travel. I have clothes and haircuts and really my life built around my ability to travel. And part of the work of the pandemic was related to changing those patterns, both for myself and for my relationships. Some people were used to seeing me occasionally, and my partner, who was accustomed to not seeing me sometimes. So lots of changes that had to take place. So here I am. I'm in the plane for the first time in 14 months. I could not be more excited. My senses are heightened. I am on alert. People are mostly behaving themselves, wearing their mask, and there is Purell everywhere. And it's all getting my attention. Not the same, not the habit of before. And then the noise of the winding up of the engine, the sensation of the takeoff of the flight. And I was aware in ways that previously were reserved for what I would euphemistically call seriously bumpy flights. I was there on the plane taking off. I was not buried in my laptop or somehow otherwise distracted from what was going on around me, because there was something new. Something had grabbed and it changed enough to really help me pay attention. And that flight, that first flight, it took me to North Carolina, where I visited one of my 90-plus-year-old aunts. I'm fortunate to have 2 left. And I hadn't seen her in now 2 years, and not the same as the last time that I saw her. But it was a very intentional visit with this urgency and and this real desire to be present with her in the moment. And I arrived on Friday early afternoon, and all afternoon, all evening and morning, we lost track of time as I listened, as I was present to her and to our dialogue and in the moment. Later, we started talking at 2, and we looked up at it was 9:30 at night. No idea. So many stories of my past, my family, stories about the present, stories of her hopes and fears for the future. And this trip, after so many months of isolation, was akin for me of coming out of Sesshin and re-entering the world. I was sort of more wide open than I am by my habit. And by choosing to spend that sort of precious time, because that re-entering is a transition, but I will transition into habit again, choosing to spend that time with someone who was also coming out of her isolated cocoon. It was really magical in its wholeness. And I know that it'll be different next time. She really wanted to talk, and I wanted to hear. She wanted to talk about world events, my mother, her sister, my father, their lives before me, their lives from a completely different and utterly true perspective. Different facets and all true. And it made me remember our recent memorial service for our beloved Kaku Sensei, when Shinryu recounted all of Kaku's names, his birth name, his multiple Zen names, and the meaning of each and the change of each, all different facets of Kaku, completely different and yet utterly true perspectives. And my own names. I was born Karen Denise Gerard. See if you can spell Gerard before I get to it. I was known as Denise by my family and still am to this day. When I entered the first grade, and I was asked by Mrs. Golden, my teacher, whether I went by Karen or Denise, I declared for Karen. That was to be my grown-up name now that I was 6 and in school. And so anyone who knows me professionally or personally since then knows me as Karen. And Walker, the name of my ex-husband, but too well known by my professional community, or so I thought, to change back to one that was unpronounceable and unspellable by many. And my Zen name, given to me by Inkyo Roshi some 2 decades ago, Echo, the name by which most of you know me. They're all facets of who I am. I am Denise to my cousins and aunts, my brother and sister. I am Karen to my husband, my colleagues, my clients, my neighbors, and most of my friends. And I am Echo to my teacher, my Sangha. I am aunt, sister, cousin, wife, and friend. And none of these are right or wrong. They're just different and not. All facets, all names for moments in time. Our Shuso for the last Ango period, Kojin, who charmingly starts every interaction with the Sangha by exclaiming, "I just want to look at each of you in your Zoom boxes," seeing each of us in that moment, where as Shiryu said, seeing so many Buddhas in their altar niches. And it's never the same. On a gross level, we can actually see the difference if we pay attention from day to day. Different hair, different expressions, different countenance. Or on a fine level where we can't see, it's different, day to day, moment to moment. Part of my work in the world entails helping organizations understand change. One of my goals, to help them see that change is something to be embraced, not shied away from, to be looked for, not hidden. Change in self, change in other, change in others. Change in place, change in time, change in attitude, intention, ability to receive, to help, to be. Learning to notice what is just now and what the skillful response to just this moment might be. Not the response from the last time, but just this time. To make some space for that skillful response. To learn that to be adept at accepting and dealing with change is in the direction of peace and ease. Because if we fight the moment, if we find it uncomfortable, our lives will be full of fight, dis-ease, and discomfort. There is no escaping it. I lived in Shelburne, Vermont for a long time, and at the local Zendo there, I remember the sensei saying that after she first encountered Zen, the reason she came back was because she understood that her life was, well, easier as a result. Not comfy, not disengaged, but easier. It is my small mind, always, that is uncomfortable. It is the small mind. When I'm in a place of ease, true ease, not disengagement, how much easier is it not only to be comfortable with change, but to enjoy it, to see it as an opportunity for presence, because it is change that gets my attention. Rarely is it habit demanding attention, right? The opposite of presence is habit. It's always change saying, wake up, pay attention. And in my case, it's always useful to pay attention to the change from silence to the sound of the bell. The joy of being present to the wondrous teaching of the changing sound of the bell during our New Year's ritual ringing of the bell 108 times. Each time different than before, or the time after, each time before influencing each time after, and each time after influencing the time before. A marvelous teaching that brings me to tears every year in its completeness. One of my favorite teachings from Bernie Glassman in my very first awkward time in the Jessariya was to stop striking the bell and invite the bell to speak. Just invite the bell to speak. Now, because this is a student talk night and we're a little less structured than sometimes others, I wanted to offer the sound of the bell to you. Dharma talk structure does not expand to allow a full 108 bells this evening, but it will allow for a few. Will you sit with me and listen to the bells for a few moments? This is much like the koan of Chin Nui's rice pail. Every day at mealtime, Master Chin Nui would personally take out a rice pail and do a dance in front of the monks' hall, laughing out loud. He would say, "Bodhisattvas, come eat." Sueto said, though he acted like this, he was not good-hearted. And a monk asked Cheng Ching, when the old man said, "Bodhisattvas, come eat," what was his meaning? And Ching said, much like the joyous praise on the occasion of a meal. My invitation to listen to the bell, as joyous as Nui's call to come eat. His joy of experiencing the meal. You know, I attended a mindfulness workshop in Northern California many years ago with the instruction to eat a plum. I thought, well, okay, I can eat a plum. No, take 30 minutes to eat this plum. If you take 30 minutes to eat a plum, you will experience the eating of the plum very differently than your normal habit. But it was an invitation, Bodhisattvas, come eat this plum, this rice. And as the eating of the rice is not about eating the rice, it's the opportunity to pay attention, to be present to the palm tree that is not a palm tree, the way I would draw it when I was 6 and still to this day, with a trunk and some leaves. It's the movement, the growth, the ever-changing collection of movement that we call a palm tree. We can come eat at any moment. We can listen to the bell speaking. We can see the palm tree. We can hear our ants. No clinging, no wanting it to be different, just this. Take good care.